So, as you all may know, we are doing the webinar today on stop wasting money on Google Ads. And this is really sometimes challenging for a lot of home improvement businesses. Either they're working or running the ads themselves. And, Google can easily eat up your ad budget if it's not set up correctly. So we're going to be going into a lot of that detail. Or it might be the case that you are already using an agency at the moment and you feel that you're probably not getting enough leads. You're spending thousands of pounds each month. Maybe you're not even seeing your ads when you are doing specific searches. So hopefully we can go and deep dive into that today and let you know any areas that you could be looking at to check the ads and see what can be performing and what can not be performing. So as we move on to, going back a slide there, maybe we need to go forward. So our learning checklist today is going to be obviously going into these areas, why your Google Ads are failing, how Google Ads works and simplified, going into quality score, which is really a metric that you should be analyzing in the campaign itself, and then obviously ideas on tracking and what to do when things go wrong, those sort of things. So as we move on to the first slide, so why are your Google ads failing? So a lot of home improvement businesses come to us with this issue. Either they say that Google ads do not work, or they would say that they've been investing in ads for a couple of months, but they're not seeing a return on their investment. So some of the 5 top wasting budget mistakes that we see is 1, they're targeting the wrong areas. 2, they're bidding for the wrong keywords. 3, they're not making use of negative keywords. So a negative keyword would be, as an example, if you are bidding for like a plumbing, heating, or even a builders or anything in the home improvement space, a lot of the negative keywords that we see come up is either it could be that people looking for merchants, so like plumbing merchants. So you could use merchant as a negative keyword, which will obviously prevent you guys from coming up for it. And then you've got obviously poor website design, which again, you can send as much traffic to a website or landing page, but if it's not built to convert that traffic, then it's again going to cause some wasted ad budget. And then also there's not tracking leads properly. So obviously if you're not tracking the leads, how do you know what your cost per acquisition is? And how do you know how many leads the ads is generating? And of course, in the digital world that we're in, you can actually be quite good at tracking everything in terms of leads that come in from the ads campaign. So if we first look at number 1 mistake, and that's targeting the wrong areas. So obviously the way Google works is that you can be quite specific with the areas you're targeting. So when you're setting up the ad campaign, and obviously a lot of the businesses that we work for are local. So, and again, I guess using this as an example, so obviously Greater London, that is quite a big area to be targeting. So sometimes people put London in or even Greater London, but of course if you're in West London, say in Fulham, then you don't really want to be getting an emergency call out over in Hackney, which is East London, because obviously it can sometimes take an hour or so just to get to that location. And obviously from an emergency perspective, people are going to try and get someone there quicker. And of course, you don't want your engineers or so forth being stuck in traffic. So to refine that search, you can either do searches from a postcode around your location, and that way you can sort of optimize the account to maximize your budget. So because potentially you're going to get as many leads in that local area that you're searching for. Another quick tip that we actually do, and actually created a video for this on our LinkedIn this week, is that we go in and we use AI to create exclusions to locations, because obviously if you're excluding locations as well, that's also going to support the ad campaign because you're not going to come up in those areas that you've excluded. And this really goes into the next point, I believe, and that's bidding for the wrong keywords. So going into an ads campaign, if you're sort of basic level, or you have some knowledge of it, obviously the way Google works is that you would bid for a keyword, such as if you're a builder, in this example, you'd be looking at, builders. Someone's going onto Google and typing in the keyword builders. Obviously, the downside of that is if you've not targeted your location, this would be, you could get people outside of that location looking for builders, and you're going to come up. So the best way of setting up the campaign would be through, and this is to fully maximize your budget, this would be setting up as a phrase match keyword or exact match keyword, where you could go for target, say, bathroom renovations, Peterborough, or bathroom renovations, Fulham, because that way you're going to be highly targeted. Also, the specific phrases like near me, they do work, but again, you need to be making sure that your locations and everything is set up correctly. Another common mistake that we also see is people set up the campaign as a broad match keyword. And obviously with broad match keyword, you'll probably, if you've ever looked inside Google and set up that campaign, you come up for some things that are sometimes totally irrelevant to what you're trying to bid for. Um, as an example, you probably, if you was bidding for broad match for builders, you'll probably come up for builder sandcastle or something ridiculous as that. But obviously, you've paid for that from Google. Google doesn't mind that because they're getting the money at the end of the day. Which obviously goes on to my third point, and that's not making use of negative keywords. So obviously, before you start a campaign, and we actually have a negative keyword list here. So if anyone wants to get a free spreadsheet with all the list of negative keywords, we would happily give that to you. But such as free keywords. So obviously, this is also not only an example here is keywords such as free. So yes, obviously, a lot of the trades that we work with, they do offer free quotes. But I feel like sometimes adding that in as a negative keyword can help the performance of the campaign, because you can sort of increase the quality of the lead. And sort of keywords like cheap. Again, you can also look at it from like B&Q, Wix, Screwfix, because obviously these are people actually sort of looking maybe for the parts or tools. So obviously that's, again, going to fall into the negative keyword lists. And I think obviously the example I used previously, where you'll get plumbing merchants coming up, which obviously again is a wasted cost. I also feel that from our sort of experience and obviously the budgets that we're working with for the local businesses, I feel like sometimes remitting the brand names can also assist with wasting costs, because for an example, in the plumbing trade, if you are bidding for keywords like gas engineer or boiler service, obviously British Gas is their competitor. So obviously what they're going to do, you don't really want to be coming up there, because British Gas, they have obviously a lot more products that they serve. Obviously they have a vast amount of customers. So you could be getting wasted costs from that. And you also need to understand is that if someone's doing a branded search, they're probably either an existing customer or they have some awareness of that brand. That's why they're searching for them. So again, don't want to be wasting costs on that respect. So if we move on to mistake number 4, and this is poor website design. So again, there's a lot of companies that come to us and they will say, oh, well, our ad's not performing. We look at the ads account, they're getting some relevant clicks. And unfortunately, you go to look at the website and they don't have, they won't have their reviews on there. They have no call to actions. They haven't optimized their landing pages for each individual device. Great example of that is obviously if you're sending traffic to a mobile device, you want to optimize it for what people do on mobile and what's the best way of contact. So obviously phone calls are push that we try to do on mobile because people are more likely to call on there. Whereas like desktop, people are more realistically going to use the contact form submission to get in contact with you. And again, also looking at sort of an emergency style campaign. So, emergency electrician, emergency plumber, you're going to sort of push that towards mobile because at the end of the day, a lot of people, everyone's pretty much using mobile to do those searches. So it's also best to make sure that the website's designed to that. And obviously, when you are thinking about website design, you obviously have to make it as easy as possible for the user to get in contact with you. So making clear call to actions throughout the page, your number evident, and everything like that. And also obviously creating trust signals because like your accreditations and everything like that, again, is going to support the ads campaign. So here's some good examples of how you can see all the call to actions. The reviews are also visible as well in this instance. So if we move on to the fifth mistake, so again, another example of why ads are not performing is because obviously a lot the tracking's not either set up correctly, or there's an instance whereby you obviously don't know how many leads you're getting from the ads campaign because there's not been any tracking set up at all. Obviously, when you're making the use of by not tracking, there's you pretty much you can't make decisions on whether or not the ad's performing. Also, in Google's obviously intelligent algorithms that it uses, then if they can sense that you're getting conversions, there is obviously ways that you can improve that from the data. But of course, if Google doesn't know what conversion is, then you can't really improve the campaign. Whereas obviously if you are tracking, you can say, we've created 12 leads at a rate of £45, an example, to and then you can obviously analyze that. You can obviously scale on that campaign or descale, and you can really identify whether or not what's a good ad campaign and what's not. And obviously the tracking is easy to set up. If you're obviously working with a developer, that they should realistically be able to identify, what's coming through as a contact form submission. There's obviously tracking numbers like Corel that you can use to track numbers. And obviously in the interface on Google Ads, it allows you to track the numbers. So you should be able to see the cost per lead here. And yeah, as you can see from this graph, there is a lot of challenges faced with not getting that done. But obviously, a bad campaign with no tracking is really going to be wasting costs because, again, like I said, you don't really have an understanding of what's working and what's not, what keywords are what's not working. Because obviously, if you're bidding for, five to 10 keywords within a campaign, you should be able to then identify, which one of those keywords that you're bidding for is driving the most conversions. And obviously then you can scale on that campaign. So as we move on to the next point, we are looking at ways you can simplify these things. So obviously with the bid strategy, So, identifying, what, and you can use tools for this. So obviously on Ahrefs or SEMrush, what you can do is you can type the keyword, it'll tell you cost per click. And it will obviously give you the average cost per click. Google Ads Planner also has it. You can then sort of see realistically how much you should be paying per click for that. And obviously, again, Google's interface allows you to do what a max cost per click looks like. Quality score. So within Google, there's quality scores. Obviously, the better quality score that you have, this is done on landing page experience, CTR, and ad relevance. So how relevant you're making that your keyword to the ad or the ad that you're looking to promote or bid for is obviously another factor. And also obviously competition. Areas like central London obviously are going to be with more population. Obviously more people are going to be bidding for those keywords. And of course you'll have bigger companies with bigger budgets that obviously inflate the CPC because they are looking to outbid you so they can get the customers from you. So quality score is a very important metric that we go by. And obviously the better towards 10 out of 10 that you get the quality score, obviously the lower cost per click you're going to pay. Again, usually lower cost per click leads to more clicks, which obviously then leads to more leads. So these are really the metrics that you can be looking at. So firstly, the ad relevance. This is quite easy to do. So if you're bidding for something like kitchen fitters London, then you need to have that keyword in the ad title and as well as in the ad description. And also there's various assets like site links and stuff within Google. So obviously if you're implementing those keywords there, then it's obviously very important. The other one is obviously the landing page experience. Again, the main factors here is obviously including those keywords that you're bidding for on that landing page and also having sort of relevant content towards it. It also analyzes things like other trust signals, like privacy policies, reviews, website speed, website optimization in terms of devices. So all of those things really need to be factored into that as well, as to the ad relevance. And all these areas should really support the CTR. Obviously, CTR is how much you're bidding for the keywords. Again, you can use the tools to see whether or not what's the average cost of a click. If yours So, for example, if the average cost per click is £10, you're only bidding £5, your CTRs are going to be lower because your competition are outbidding you, and you're never going to be towards the top of the page. So all of that needs to be factored into your budgets. And if you are realistically, if you've got a good understanding of what your budget is, you can then see what clicks or keywords you need to be bidding for, so you can get good CTRs as well. And obviously, ad copy also helps with it. Using all the Google assets like the setting up call ads or adding image assets, and all the other different things to optimize the performance. Also, for example, if you've got an offer on, add that into the ad copy, and make it as prevalent as possible to make sure that the click-through rates would go through. I think obviously the main point to highlight here is, if you are looking at the ad copy, would you choose that ad? And if you wouldn't, then you probably want to consider changing that. And I always say have that belief on anything. If you think of yourself as a customer who's visiting your website or looking at your landing page, would you then choose you as a company to do the service that you're looking for? And we've asked that a lot of times to businesses, and they actually are quite they pretty much agree that they wouldn't choose that service. So again, we then look to improve the areas that they feel that we should do to make sure that the customers are choosing them as a business. So you're done for you campaign setup. So time's precious as a business owner, and some of these things can be very time consuming. Obviously you need to have knowledge. Again, this comes down to probably as you're in the home improvement company, you probably have experienced it a lot, where, or even when you're doing any DIY within at home, pretty much anyone could put up a cupboard or do a bit of plumbing work, but obviously it's always best to um, use an agency or get some guidance on that. So as you can see, we do actually have access, or we can give you access, like I said, to the negative keywords. We can give you access to keyword analysis. We can also give you access to campaign structures, and how you should be setting up the ad campaign, as free guidance to that. So if we move on to the tracking, so these are things that you should be tracking when you're running your ads. Obviously, phone calls, like I mentioned before, you can get call route, which is obviously a tracking number. It actually records your calls as well. Form submissions, obviously make sure that you're complying with GDPR, but obviously with the form submissions, quite a good thing, an easy thing to track. You can either set up a unique URL thank you page, or you can actually go into Google Tag Manager to do that. And then obviously tracking how much cost per lead is also highly recommended, because obviously then you'll be able to see how much you're paying for a lead. Just to go on to other monitoring of the campaign performance, is obviously looking at your ad spend. Obviously, it's quite easy to keep within the ad spend because you set daily budgets up. But obviously, you want to be maximizing that ad budget as much as possible by obviously getting the lowest cost per click to drive as much traffic as can. Identifying which ads are performing well, and obviously then scaling on those campaigns, and then obviously changing or pausing the underperforming ads. Monitoring your cost per lead, again, is, like we've mentioned, very important. And then also once you get the lead, how quick are you responding to them? Is there automation set up? Do you have an office team? If you don't, you should probably look at ways that you can sort of automate it through AI or WhatsApp or anything like that, which is actually something that we do here. We're using our lead control framework. And then obviously looking at your regional performance, are you bidding in the right areas? And again, everything is data driven, so you should be able to identify where your clicks are coming from, what wasted cost you're getting on the ad campaign. Also, when things are going wrong, so even the best campaigns face challenges. So some of the ones that we sort of see is obviously when they're not getting enough leads have slowed down. That can happen. Either you can get outbidded, there's more competition. There's obviously the financial issues that we're faced with on a day-to-day basis. And obviously all these things can factor your lead volume. Obviously that also can lead to leads getting too expensive because of all the competition, obviously the prices of ads going up. And then obviously there's the issue with poor lead quality, which obviously can be helped, like I said before, was obviously someone typing in cheap. That could be added as a negative keyword to avoid anyone looking for a cheap option. So thanks very much for listening today. We're now on to the Q&A session. Does everyone have any questions and answers?
We actually have a few questions. I don't know if you want them to say it, you, Osman, or want me to read them.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Morgana. If you want, I can read them.
Okay, great. So the first question is, what's the impact of negative keywords and in the ads, and what are negative keywords? Sorry.
Great question, Osman. So in the negative keywords, basically, so Google allows you to add negative keywords to your campaign. So these are really keywords that you don't want to be coming up for. Say, for example, you could either, as an example, would be location. So say, for example, you are bidding for Fulham, boiler services Fulham, but then because if you set up the keyword in the campaign as a phrase match, or even broad match, then what Google does is it'll make you bid for keywords that are similar. So sometimes what falls under similar with that would be boiler service, I don't know, Hackney. But obviously Hackney's could be sometimes an hour, depending on traffic, an hour from Fulham. So obviously you could then add Hackney as a negative keyword to avoid you coming up from that. So basically, just to be as simple as possible, negative keywords are keywords that you can add to the campaign to stop you coming up for that keyword when it's searched for on Google, which obviously, if you can add as many negative keywords as possible to optimize your campaign, the better, because you're going to be coming up for more keywords that are relevant rather than wasted costs. I feel like there are some common negative keywords in the home improvement industry, like, merchants, suppliers, people looking for jobs, CVs, all that sort of thing. We can add those negative keywords before the campaign's even started to avoid you coming up for those. Hope that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah, perfect.
thank you. So the other question is there any tools to check conversions for specific keywords, page or button, also clicks and impressions?
Yeah, sure. So obviously in the Google Ads interface, that has all the information there. So you'll obviously see your click-through rates, your impressions, your clicks. You can also, in the columns, you'll be able to see in the campaign and within the ad set, what keywords are coming up for, what conversion what you're seeing. Also in the there's reporting that you can be done on Google as well, that you can see all the reporting. Even when you sign in, there's the dashboard. You can see pretty much as soon as you sign in how many clicks you've had, how much money you've spent, what's your conversions, what's your cost per acquisition, how many phone calls you've had. There's also a database on Google with the phone. So when you're receiving phone calls, it'll give you sort of the number, how long the call was. So you can sort of get a rough idea of whether or not, like, say if a call's only 3 seconds, it's probably not a lead. Whereas if it's like 5 minutes or over 2 minutes, then you potentially could see that that was a lead. And obviously you could cross-reference that number with your own database. And that helps.
Okay. So the other question that we have is, what budget should we allocate for ads campaigns per day, and what's the minimum?
Yeah, good question. So we usually work with, we sort of advise anything above £500 a month. So roughly that's about just under £20 maybe. But obviously if you're doing Monday to Friday, then £20 a day. Realistically, it really is based on a location keyword basis, because obviously, like we've mentioned, every sort of area has different search volumes, different cost per clicks. So we factor that in, because realistically what we need to identify is how many clicks we can get to the site within that budget. So say for example, your cost per clicks, sometimes especially in London for a boiler installation, it can be anywhere between £10 to £20 per click. So obviously not every click that you get is going to be a conversion. So you'd need at least, £50 a day upwards for that to be a successful campaign. But obviously then there's other keywords like your emergency plumbing or plumbing near me, that they usually have lower cost per click. So obviously if you've got a lower budget, would be best maybe geared towards those types of keywords, because it's going to make use of your budget and get you more clicks to the site.
Okay. And the last question is, what is A/B testing in ads and how it helps? Also, can we direct run ads, or we need to run awareness campaigns first, or brand awareness?
Yeah, so A/B testing is obviously you're testing out different ad copies, because again, the better CTR that you're getting, the better, the more clicks you're going to get. So you can differentiate between ad copies. Obviously, the best way to set it up is obviously you need to have some form of, they need to be sort of quite similar, for you to do the A/B testing to see what you're actually testing on that. Obviously, you can test landing pages as well, because, or the website, or that you're sending it to, the landing page, because again, having maybe a contact form submission higher up the page could lead to more conversions than having it slightly lower. Reviews slightly higher. You could be testing out all those types of things. In terms of sort of brand awareness, no, not really for Google. More so that would be for Facebook, because that's part of the funnel on that respect. Whereas Google, it's more sort of intentional marketing. People are looking on Google for a service there and then, so you don't realistically need to do the brand awareness campaigns. You can go solely, firstly, how we position it is, if it's a new ads account, we'd go for clicks first to drive clicks, conversions. And then once you get conversions, then you can start to look at setting up conversion ads, because then Google identifies what a conversion is. Thanks.
That's all the questions that we had.
Well, great questions. Thanks, guys.